So I've always had this weird affinity with Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the book. Like, to me, it's the Harry Potter book I enjoy reading the most. And well, the film for me is the opposite. It's quite dull. I don't think it's a terrible film, but to me, it's probably the weakest Harry Potter film. Well, it's between this and Deathly Hallows Part 1. Like, in many ways, I sort of flip-flop between the two of which one I think is worse. But it's definitely Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows Part 1 that are the ones that are the weakest. And the problem that I have with Half-Blood Prince is that the book isn't dull, and so the film shouldn't be dull either. But for some odd reason, David Yates' direction in this film just feels very kind of sluggish and a bit inconsistent at times. Like, the cinematography for this film is very inconsistent to me. There are times where I really do like it, where the colour palette is very autumnal and I really like it. The Quidditch tryout really stands out to me as a scene where I really like the cinematography. That looks like the average, British weather on an autumn day. I like that colour palette. But then there are times where, like, the film is either in black and white, or just it's so dark you can't see anything, or that there are filters to make the film look much more soft and make the lighting more soft, which then makes the film look kind of out of focus, and it's weird and messy, and it's quite dull, and I don't really like the cinematography in this film. It also doesn't help with the fact that because the film is kind of dull looking, and because the film is kind of slowly paced, it doesn't really grab your attention as much as the other Harry Potter films, because you're kind of just like, oh, something happened, okay, now we're back to just like low tones of grey and brown and black, okay, yeah. Oh, something happened, okay, that it's inconsistent to me. And it's weird because on paper it's a good adaptation of the book for the most part, and the film starts off on a really good note. Like, I love the opening to the film. It opens, but there is a certain point in the film where I can feel my attention and my sort of enthusiasm for the film kind of peak and then drop down rapidly. And that is this moment right here.
I'm not usually lit.
Okay, what is this supposed to mean? Like, is this supposed to be funny? Is this supposed to be awkward? Is it supposed to be romantic? Is it supposed to be corny? Like, I don't get it. It's such a weird moment, and just, it's a real reflection of Harry and Ginny's romance, because the romance between Harry and Ginny in this film is awful, especially compared to book Harry and Ginny. And granted, the book has its problems, specifically Harry's little monster, but at the end of the day, book Harry and Ginny fit much more together. Movie Harry and Ginny just have all these awkward and weird scenes, and it's just, oh, it's so bad. And granted, Harry's feelings for Ginny sort of come out of nowhere in the film, and instead of the writers supplementing Daniel Radcliffe and Bonnie Wright with good material, a fun, flirty, sexual chemistry, instead of giving them that, they just give them these awkward and weird scenes that are just cringy. Like, no.
Open up, you. Don't you trust me?
Shoelace.
Ugh, just no. Why are they so awkward? In the books, Harry and Ginny complement each other quite well, although in the book it does sort of come a little bit out of nowhere, but it still works better than it does in the film. Ginny, for one, is a much more interesting character. She's much more tougher and fierce and sassy. She's a popular girl. She has friends, and in many ways, you kind of go, yeah, she's a good fit for Harry. But poor Bonnie Wright is just made to be bland in the film, and I genuinely feel bad for her because, what is she supposed to do with this character? Why does Harry like Ginny in the movies? I don't get it.
Quiet, please.
Shut it!
And also, it doesn't help the fact that Harry and Ginny's kiss in the film just is really crap. Like, it very much looks like Bonnie Wright and Daniel Radcliffe do not want to be kissing each other. Oh wow, I feel the burning passion. Why is it like that? It's so just bad. Like, especially when you compare it to the book where Harry has just been in detention all day. He couldn't participate in the Quidditch match. And then so he goes back to the Gryffindor common room. They've won the Quidditch Cup. Ginny comes running up to Harry just like, Harry, we did it. We won the cup. And then instinctively Harry just kisses her. And it's like this real spur of the moment thing. He kisses her. He looks over at Ron and Ron's just like, yeah, cool. You guys are dating, I guess? Sure. And it's this cool moment of triumph for Harry. It's like, yes, he won. He got the girl. In the movie, it's just, she kisses him. And it's really awkward, and it's a really bad kiss. And speaking of Ron, his relationship with Lavender actually is pretty good in the film. It's the right level of cringeworthy, and that kind of awkward nature of this is Ron's first girlfriend, but he also kind of just likes kissing her, and that's kind of it. But also Lavender doesn't supplement Ron with, being an interesting person, she just wants to suck face with him. And it's interesting that I think they do omit the fact that in the book, Ron wants to date Lavender purely for the fact that he wants to make Hermione jealous, but in the film, they don't really address that, and I don't think it's a change that necessarily is a bad or good change. It's just they cut out something and it's okay. Now, the returning cast is still really great. I mean, in fact, I think this is Daniel Radcliffe's best performance as Harry Potter. Like, to me, in this film, he feels the most like Book Harry because he is just sort of quippy and snarky. He's just saying all these things that are very much in line with the character of Harry Potter from the books.
Hey, she's only interested in you because she thinks you're the chosen one.
But I am the chosen one. Okay, sorry.
The binding is fragile.
Harry!
Sir, not to mention the pincers.
Jessie Cave is actually also really great as Lavender Brown. Like, again, as I mentioned earlier, she manages to capture that sort of infatuation, that teen obsession, that idea of just, this is her first relationship. She is being all, like, cutesy and, like, clingy. It's really good stuff. And now, this might be a controversial opinion, but I actually think the weakest casting in the film is Jim Broadbent as Slughorn. Now, before you get carried away and start spamming me with dislikes and hate comments, I do not think Jim Broadbent is a bad Slughorn, and nor do I think he gives a bad performance in this film. In fact, he's really great. What I mean to say is that the character they have written in this film and the way Jim Broadbent plays Slughorn, he doesn't play him like the character in the books. Like, to me, there is a weird disconnect between Slughorn in the films being the head of Slytherin house at one point, and him being a Slytherin in general. Like, for some odd reason, Jim Broadbent plays Slughorn as really just... as he's a sweet old man in the films, but Slughorn to me in the books has this side of he's very pompous, he's very showman-like, and you can like him because he's that sort of bombastic character of, ah, my boy, oh ho ho! But at the end of the day, there is this sort of selfish layer of Slughorn likes to surround himself with all these rich and famous people because it bigs up his ego. And that to me is something we don't really get in the film. It's more just like, oh, Slughorn's this sweet old man who knew all these famous people, and he's a good teacher, everyone likes him, and he elevates students to higher levels, and that's kind of it. He's just not smarmy enough. Like, he's very kind and sweet and gentle, but he's not book Slughorn to me. In fact, I actually think Stephen Fry would have made a perfect Slughorn if they just cast him in the films. I mean, it would have been meta since he does narrate the Harry Potter audiobooks, but also, Stephen Fry to me just seems to fit the mold of book Slughorn much better than Jim Broadbent. Again, that's not me saying Jim Broadbent is bad, he's really good, it's just that the character that he portrays in the films is not the character from the books.
Good to see you, Wallenby.
Now, getting on to the best scenes in the film. The scene where Harry wins the Felix Felicis by brewing the draft of Living Death using the Half-Blood Prince's book
Crush it, don't cut it.
is genuinely a great sequence. I love that montage. David Yates does such a great job at making montages in these films. Like, his montage work is amazing, and Nicholas Hopper's score really carries the scene. Like, it's so damn good. Again, going on to montages, the Quidditch tryout montage and the Quidditch match montage is also amazing. I love how David Yates sort of makes the flying more grounded and realistic and rougher and grittier, and I would have loved to have seen a longer Quidditch match with that sort of directorial style, but I'm fine with the montages we get. Weasley is our king! Weasley is our king! Katie Bell touching the cursed necklace is also really well done. Like, the sort of horror, sort of floating in the air, screaming effect they induce is really terrifying. It's great horror imagery. And, fun fact, as a kid, I always just found it funny how the actor playing Katie Bell was on the Basil Brush show, and so when I first saw this film, I was like, oh look, it's the Basil Brush girl, she's Katie Bell. I always found that to be amusing. The sequence where Harry and Dumbledore go to retrieve the Locket Horcrux in the cave is genuinely a fantastic sequence. It's so well done, the way they depict the imagery from the book is amazing, especially the moment where Dumbledore repels the Inferi with the fire spell, since that is pretty much just the cover of the book. It's so well done, and it's so visually stunning. Snape killing Dumbledore is a really good moment, and by that, I mean the way Alan Rickman delivers the line Avada Kedavra. I do have a problem with Dumbledore's death scene, and I will get to it a little bit later on, because there is something about it that doesn't entirely work for me, but overall, I really like it when Snape kills Dumbledore, and then Harry chases after him, and he's all like, Snape! He trusted you! And then the moment where Snape reveals to Harry that he is the Half-Blood Prince is really well done. Alan Rickman's delivery is superb. And the sequence where Harry finally approaches Dumbledore's dead body, and then everyone's gathered around them, and they all light their wands, and they get rid of the dark mark in the sky. Beautiful sequence. Nicholas Hopper's score of Dumbledore's farewell is fantastic. I will say, as a kid, I was always confused by the scene. I was like, what are they doing? Are they trying to bring him back to life? Is this like Peter Pan? Are they all just like, I do believe in Dumbledore, I do, and he's gonna come back to life? And for the longest time, I had no idea what the sequence was about. And then, like, I think, I don't know, like a good, 5 years ago, I watched it and I was like, oh, they're getting rid of the Dark Mark. Like, for some odd reason, I didn't understand that as a kid. I was pretty dumb, to be honest. Getting onto the comparisons to the book, I think the movie portrays Weasley's Wizard Wheezes really well. Like, it looks like such a cool place to be. Everything to the set design, to the Weasley's Wizard Wheezes music, to the outfits Fred and George wear, it's very great. It's genuinely the scene in the book brought to life. Though, I do think it is a shame that Goblet of Fire and the Order of the Phoenix completely gloss over the fact that Harry gave the twins his Triwizard Tournament winnings, which then makes it make sense to how these poor kids can set up a joke shop in the middle of Diagon Alley. And the thing is, all you need is just a quick dialogue exchange of Harry going, wow guys, this is great, and then just have Fred and George be like, thanks Harry, if it wasn't for you giving us your Triwizard winnings, this place wouldn't even exist. So, because of that, take anything you want, it's on the house. That's all you needed, that's annoying. A big failing of the film is excluding most of the memories Dumbledore shows Harry about Voldemort's backstory, because the film does this thing where it focuses more on the romantic comedy than it does on the, backstory of Voldemort, which is important and informs Deathly Hallows. It's really annoying. They cut out a lot of crucial scenes. They removed the scene about Marvolo Gaunt and his ring and how the stone in the ring is actually the Resurrection Stone, which was owned by one of the three brothers of the Deathly Hallows story. They removed the backstory of Tom Riddle killing his father and grandparents. They removed the backstory of Tom Riddle after he leaves Hogwarts going to work for Borgin and Burkes and how he visits the witch who has the locket of Slytherin and Hufflepuff's cup. And the reason why the Hufflepuff cup scene is important is because it shows to Harry this is one of the Horcruxes. Like, in the movies, Harry doesn't know what the Horcruxes are for the most part, which is why in Deathly Hallows Part 2, they have to give him this sort of spider sense, like he can just detect where the Horcruxes are, where in the books, Harry has somewhere to go on in the sense of, he knows he's looking for Hufflepuff's cup, because Tom Riddle has this thing where he loves Hogwarts so much and he loves the Hogwarts artifacts that he wants to personally collect them and turn them into Horcruxes. They removed the scene of Tom Riddle visiting Dumbledore and wanting to get the Defense Against the Dark Arts job, and that's a really important scene because, not only do we see the half metamorphosis of Tom Riddle into Voldemort, but also after Voldemort doesn't get the job, he curses the position, which is why every year Hogwarts struggles to get a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher that lasts for more than 1 year. And also, when it comes to the Horcruxes in the film, I'm quite confused as to Dumbledore's reaction in the film, because he has this reaction of, oh my god, this is more than I could have possibly imagined. And then all of a sudden he starts talking to Harry just like, oh yeah, all these things that we saw in the previous films, yeah, they're Horcruxes. And I'm kind of like, hold on, wait, so do you know what the Horcruxes are, or do you not know what they are? Because in the book, Dumbledore has this hunch about the Horcruxes, he knows that Tom Riddle's diary and the ring are Horcruxes, and in the books, the reason why he's so shocked is just purely for the sheer number of Horcruxes that Tom Riddle made. But the movie doesn't really explain that, it's just he's really confused, and all of a sudden he starts pulling out all these old artifacts from the movies like the ring and Tom Riddle's diary, and he's like, these are Horcruxes, Harry, we have to go find another one, and it's like, hold on, wait, do you know about the Horcruxes, or do you not know about the Horcruxes? The fight at the Barrow in the film is also really dumb. Not only does it not happen in the books, but also, it just creates so many problems. The reasons why the filmmakers added it into the film were just to add an action beat into the story, which, is a failing on their behalf, because the book was never dull and needed a big action beat. The book was interesting on itself. And also, the sequence in the film is just kind of weird. It's like Bellatrix shows up, sets fire to the Burrow, her and Greyback chase Harry and Ginny around the fields for a bit, and then they disappear and leave. What was the point? What did that add to the story? Nothing. It also just completely ruins the fact that in Deathly Hallows, the Ministry and the Order of the Phoenix set up Harry's safe house to be the Burrow. So if the Burrow can easily be breached when Harry's staying there during Half-Blood Prince, what is the point of keeping him there during Deathly Hallows? Also, if the film wanted a big action set piece, they could have easily done that after Dumbledore's death. The sequence in the books where Harry is chasing after Snape. He's currently in the middle of a battle between the Order of the Phoenix, the Death Eaters, and Dumbledore's army. The Order of the Phoenix and Dumbledore's army are keeping the Death Eaters at bay, and they're also fighting, and Harry's just running through them all. He's jumping over rubble, he's jumping around corridors, he's chasing after Snape. It's a really cool action beat, and so if the film needed action, just put that bit into the film.
Fight back! You coward! Fight back!
And speaking of Dumbledore's death, the scene to me in the film doesn't play as well as the scene in the book. The film captures Draco's hesitancy and reluctance to do it, and Dumbledore's empathy towards Draco captures that really well. But the whole sequence is just a bit... it's weird because in the book, this is the moment where Dumbledore is incredibly vulnerable. Not only is he weak from the poison that he drank in the cave, but also he's scared. Like, this is a really scary moment. Not only does he have to calm down Draco, but also he needs Snape to go through the plan and kill him because he is going to die eventually. But the way it plays in the film, it doesn't have those extra layers. It's just Dumbledore going, hey, Severus, please kill me like we agreed to because I need to die. And yes, there is that layer of subtext in the book, but also there is also the additional layers of Dumbledore pleading for his life. He's trying to make it convincing, but in the movie, Gambon's just like, Severus, please. Like, there needed to be more layers to Gambon's performance in that scene. Also, the fact that there isn't a funeral for Dumbledore in the film is just incredibly weird. I mean, we've known Dumbledore for 6 films, and we don't get a good final goodbye for him in this film. Like, it's so weird. The film ends with Harry, Ron, and Hermione in the astronomy tower. They're just talking about what's going on. And the weird thing is that Ron doesn't even get a line of dialogue in that scene. It's so bizarre. And then the film just sort of ends, and it's really just kind of anticlimactic. It's like, oh, get ready for part 1. And I'm like, okay. And that's kind of it. Like, there's no funeral for Dumbledore. There's no big goodbye. It's just the movie ends. Overall, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince is not a bad film, but to me, it could easily have been the best Harry Potter film. Or at least one of the most enjoyable Harry Potter films, because the book is so enjoyable, but the film doesn't seem to capture that magic. Pardon the pun. The awkward romance with Harry and Ginny is just terrible, and then them excluding key scenes of Voldemort's backstory and not showing it to the audience, like, that to me just really decreases the quality of the film's story. Like, they kept focusing more on the romance than actually on the cool, psychological, dark backstory of Voldemort. Like, why would you do that? But those are my thoughts on Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, follow me on social media, all that good stuff. It's all down in the description. Until we meet again, see you guys next time.